an extraordinary honor and privilege and pleasure to be here. Finally, after a long, what do they call it? A long run for well, this would be a long jump. Run for a long jump.
That's right. I think we started working together, 3 years ago or so.
Something like that. Time has gotten a little elastic, right?
Yes. Started working with the Institute for Venture Philanthropy, who very generously sponsored having this exhibition here. And it's just really such a treat to welcome you to the museum in person.
Thank you.
And great joy to have the Talking Cure here. So I appreciate you sitting down with me and answering some questions that I'm sure
maybe you'll get cured.
Yeah, so maybe. Well, I sure did that lately after this, the craziness we've all been through with the pandemic. But,
for sure.
So maybe we can start, if you don't mind, just saying, what is the Talking Cure?
So the Talking Cure is it's an installation. It's an immersive project. It's a collaboration. And it really came about because I work by myself in the studio, and it's actually a very lonely thing, being an artist sometimes. And I had this idea. I had a show coming up related to NSECA in Seattle way back when, to try and collaborate. And I wasn't quite sure how or what that would be. And then I realized this is not a linear process, first of all.
Very rarely is.
I realized that the question people most commonly ask me when they look at my work is, what's it all about? And my answer would always be, well, what do you think it's about? Because I'm much more interested in dialogue than monologue. And I thought about that, what do you think kind of turn, and I realized that is kind of what therapists do. It's not what I think, it's what you think.
Yeah.
And that became the germ of the idea and the germ of the exhibition. And so I made 12 sculptures, random number. I actually made 15.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, because what I then did is I invited in writers, 12 writers from all different walks of the writing world. There's a comic book artist, there's a horror film writer, there's a rock and roll singer-writer, playwright. And I asked each of them to come into the studio by themselves and pick a piece that spoke to them. And then I asked them to write a 3-minute monologue of what they thought was going on in my sculpture's head. What were they thinking? And the reason I made 15 is because I didn't want to have somebody come in and say, well, that's the last one. You have to use that one.
Oh.
So there are 3 orphans out there that nobody chose.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
Well,
to not want to put someone in that position.
Exactly. And then they'd be like, oh, wow, really? I don't really like that piece. So, and I very purposely did not direct the writers. As you can see, my pieces don't have very specific gender. To me, some of them are very clearly male or very female, but I wanted the writers to have free reign. And the other idea that then came into play was that the idea of therapy is that you're cured by talking. Yeah. You give it up. You give it away. You take your burdens and you move them on. And so I decided that the experiment for me would be to give my work away, meaning that I did not direct the writers, saying this has to be this has to. They use their imagination to come up with who these people are. And I was completely shocked by who they thought they were because, again, each writer brought their story, their narrative. I mean, the whole show is about storytelling, right?
Right, absolutely.
And so
relationships
So they brought their story to bear on the sculpture they chose. I then put out a casting call in New York for young actors. And actually ended up getting some not-so-young actors. And again, each actor was allowed to choose who they wanted to be.
Right.
And
how they would interpret.
Exactly. What gender they wanted it to be, what voice. And for that, I had to do a little direction just because I had to learn sound recording.
Oh, boy.
Right? Yeah. Louder, softer.
Everything else,
faster, slower. And it was an interesting production process. And I worked with a tech guy who threw all the monologues up in the sky and generated these weird things. Now remember, this is 2012.
Yeah.
These weird things called QR codes.
That, of course, we all,
Well,
that's, very much in our lives now.
Yeah, so at the very beginning, excuse me, I think I sent you some of the paperwork. When the show started traveling, I had to send this long explanation, like, what the heck is a QR code? And we also had MP3 players.
Yeah.
Ironically, those are now the outdated technology. And so the idea is that when you came into the show, you would hit the QR code with your phone and the sculpture would speak.
Yeah. And what a wonderful way to activate the sculptures in that way. And I have to laugh because I know when we first started planning, this was of course in 2018, 2019, and I said, well, I'm not sure about the QR codes, if all of our visitors are going to know what that is, and maybe we should bring in the MP3 players. And of course now after the last couple of years, it really has become part of what we do in our everyday lives with technology.
I was wildly ahead of my time.
In many ways. Well, I'd love to talk about the collaborative aspect because I think that's really interesting to me. I think it's so unusual that that you enveloped in your own practice the literary arts, the performing arts, and really gave the freedom to the collaborators.
Right.
So could you talk a little bit about that collaborative process? What surprised you about it? What went well? What maybe were some bumps along the way?
Yeah, and I would just want to add for the record that you were part of the collaborative process because, as we discussed, every time the show has gone to an institution, I tell the curator, set it up however you want.
Yeah.
And so that's drawing you into the project as well in a different way.
Yeah.
I really became a producer in a sense, and definitely working with writers was like trying to wrangle sheep or geese. I don't know,
or cats,
what the metaphor is. It was just interesting to find out who got their piece in on time, who hit the word count, because we had determined that 3 minutes is about as much as people will listen.
And how did you determine that?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I think I did some research.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a long time ago.
Data out there.
Yeah, and so, but the drawings and the sculptures speak to each other in different ways.
Yeah.
And so that became very important. It also activates the walls, and it makes it a different, fuller kind of show.
Yeah, I think so. It makes it more immersive, and even back to what you were saying about the curators and the exhibition designers being part of this collaboration. I think in designing the show, I had a lot of fun, not just figuring out where the figures are going to be in relationship to each other and thinking about as visitors come into the space and how they experience it, but also how the drawings are placed and the different relationships that the drawings also have with the sculptures.
Absolutely.
And that was a lot of fun to play with that.
It looks different in every single venue.
Yeah.
And in every venue, even though it's 24 pieces total, in every single venue there have been relationships made that I never saw.
Yeah.
And to me that is just delicious, delightful.
Oh.
And I mean, I would love to collaborate again. And anybody watching this video, I really enjoy the collaborative process. I guess I enjoy being part of a team where we're all kind of working towards that same goal, and maybe also being the person in control of it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and based on the results, certainly you have a real talent. Not just for creating the work itself, but also for bringing together very talented groups of people with a common goal.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It's been, quite candidly, this has been like the most extraordinary thing of my artistic life. I never imagined that this show would resonate with so many people, that it would have the life that it's had, and that it would touch so many people in so many different places around America.
Well, hopefully around the world.
Around the world.
Yeah.
You're from your lips.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I mean, in terms of this project, what would define success for you as it relates to this project?
I mean, it's already had success. The fact that it's traveled for 10 years and gone to so many places, and I've gotten to meet so many people that I never would have met.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a personal mark of success for me. Seeing how an art project and how storytelling, how it touches so many people, and how many people have stories to tell.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
we've done a lot of writing programs and a lot of curriculum. You know, as you know, we've talked about every place this goes, the community that it's in has responded in different ways. There's no more success for an artist like me than that, than being able to touch people and communicate and talk across boundaries and borders and just be people.
Yeah.
You know? That's success.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you.
I'd like to shift gears a little bit and just talk about your process, because I know, you know, our visitors and our viewers and anyone that's in the craft community loves to hear about process, how the forms are built.
Oh, okay.
The nitty gritty.
Yes, but nobody has ever asked me that
how
before.
the sausage is made, as it were. But yeah, I would just love to hear more about your process.
It's interesting. Some of the visitors I was talking to yesterday were asking me about my process in terms of ideas.
Oh, interesting.
You know, where does
Well,
that
I'd love to hear about that,
idea
too.
come from? And in terms of technical stuff. So I work in clay in the most ridiculous way possible. So I work from the outside in and the inside out. So I carve these sculptures.
Okay.
And what I do is I make rudimentary forms that are in some relationship to the scale, but not really. And I start carving from the outside, and then I very quickly start hollowing from the inside. And so I go back and forth between carving and hollowing, carving and hollowing.
So they're hollow.
Oh, they're all hollow.
Okay.
And at a certain point, the hollowness is enough, you know, for it to be safe, for it to be fired, for it to be portable. These sculptures, if they were solid, would be ridiculously heavy. And then I just focus more on the characteristics, the pose, the carving, the texture. But it is, in terms of kind of working in ceramic, it's a really ridiculous way to work, but it suits me.
Yeah.
Because it's very labor intensive, but as I'm working back and forth, the piece is beginning, the person, if you will, is beginning to emerge.
Right.
And that's how that person kind of develops. And then in terms of surface, I don't really come from a traditional ceramic background, so I've never used glaze on any of my pieces, because I think glaze is great for all the ceramic people out there, but it doesn't relate to what I do.
Yeah.
And I think I'm so interested in the material and the stoniness, if you will, of clay.
Yeah.
Or what I love is that people who don't know come in and they have no idea what these sculptures are made out
so
of, and I really like that.
Yeah.
So after I've fired them, I use every kind of material that a drawer or a painter would use. You know, graphite, ink, paint, and when I teach, you know, that's the most mind-blowing thing I teach my ceramic students, is that anything you can use on a piece of paper or canvas, you can use on clay.
Right. Absolutely.
And I then always, you know, add in other objects and found materials.
Yeah.
So it is a weird, long process.
Well, and I love what you said too about how there's a lot of labor that goes into the forms, because by their outward appearance they look very clean and simple.
Thank you.
So I would love to hear more about your decisions in making them the style that they are. You know, some of them are featureless, some of them, you know, don't have appendages. So I'd love to hear your decision-making process.
It's not, it's intuitive. It's less a decision as it's just like, oh, that's who that person is.
Okay.
My background is in anthropology. So I have a background in looking at non-Western art and looking at art from other cultures and self-taught artists. And I've always been moved by the power of those kinds of objects. So that's kind of the seed of who I am as an artist. And I think that symmetry is overrated. And I think that In reality, everybody is asymmetrical.
Yes.
If you start looking at faces, everybody's eyes are a little different, everybody's shoulders are a little different. I mean, I'm looking around at the pieces, the pieces often have a lean
Right.
or a slight gesture. And what I hope to catch in those gestures is a very human quality of I say something to you and you go. And it's not a dramatic gesture, and it's not like, it's just a
Body language.
shift.
Yeah, absolutely.
A gentle, nuanced shift, but that is full of meaning, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And I also see in your forms, both the clay forms and also the drawings, a lot of the spirit of the forms to me, in a way suggests struggle or imbalance, but there's also this really beautiful resilience
Thank you.
and toughness to them.
Right.
So could you, is that's
a
part of what you were thinking, or?
Fantastic thing. Thank you to notice about that. I think that, the one thing I always think is, some of these pieces look like they're going to fall down. They never will.
Right.
And I guess I am making a comment about myself or about us humans. People are precariously balanced, but damn it, they're upright.
Yeah, they're
And
solid.
Yeah, they're solid, and there's a lot. I have a great interest in the kind of ambivalence that people have in life, and I think some of the shifting forms reflect that. The idea that everybody lives a life full of some ambivalence of love and hate, and parents are conflicted about their children are conflicted, and their internal struggles are not so wild and violent, but it's about mixed feelings. And so I hope that some of the attitudes and the poses reflect that, and yet in some of them there's a great unity, I think, between the forms or between the people. So like most things in life, everything is shades of gray.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
All of our feelings, and especially I like my ideas that these pieces, all of them, the drawings and the sculptures, are like short stories, and that each viewer will come and write their own ending.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank
oh,
you.
wow.
But that's the way I feel, and that I love working with the public in this because I'm just blown away at the stories people tell.
And that's what I think is such the power of this project, is that it really is so accessible for people.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think part of that is the simplicity of the forms. I think part of it is the poses and the gestures.
Right.
But there's just this real magic there that I think people that come to the museum and experience the show really will be able to engage with it in a very meaningful way, whether or not they listen to the audio. I think obviously that's part of the whole experience, but I think just visually speaking.
And you don't have to listen to the audio. I've had plenty of people go like, I like to come to a museum to look at things, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
You don't have to listen to the audio. Tell your own story.
Right.
It's
this very layered experience.
Yeah.
And really phenomenal.
Thanks.
Wow. And I think it's interesting too how this exhibition is so much about connection and relationships and how we all exist together, but the root of it is a monologue. It's our inner voices.
Inner voices,
So
absolutely.
there's this really, I think, beautiful way that you've started from this point of internalization and really created this experience that suggests to people connection and really existing with other people in those relationships.
Oh, thank you. I think the big takeaway is also, again, when it's used in a school setting or a didactic setting, is that it's okay to talk about your feelings.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Right.
And it'll be interesting post-COVID, because COVID's over.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. Knock on wood.
If people will have different stories, and there's no metric to measure that kind of thing, but it'll be interesting for your museum folks to see if what's on people's minds when they want to talk about or write about or draw about the project now. If that seismic shift in our world and our lives bounces back here. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, we'll definitely report back to
Yeah,
you on how
please.
people experience it here, and we're looking forward to having it here until May 15th, May 15th.
Yeah.
And I just hope that we'll get lots of people through the doors to experience
Absolutely.
it in any way that
they want.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I wanted to just whirl back for a second. You were talking about the forms, and the hardest thing to do is to make something simple.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Absolutely.
every artist watching this will understand that. And I always chuckle inside when people are like, "That looks like a kid made it."
Oh my gosh.
That's so simple. And I'm like, okay.
Well, I think any visual artist, any writer,
Yeah.
any actor
Yeah.
will all say the same thing. To create something that's visually powerful but
That's right.
restrained is the hardest thing to do.
Absolutely.
The hardest thing to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm certainly glad that you brought that up, because I think your work speaks to that
Thank you.
in such a major way. And yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And just so happy to have this show. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
And I want to also say thank you for the gorgeous installation.
Oh, you're welcome.
It looks really wonderful, and the pieces sing in this beautiful museum.